Afternoon, good evening, everybody. And I'm sure you haven't got a clue of what we're going to be covering today. Or have you already?
Now, at the heart of what we're going to talk about tonight, I want you to remember this one thing. People like people who are like them. People like people who are like them. Everyone got that? Because the rest of it's going to come at you pretty quickly. When we were talking about dog food sandwiches just a moment ago and donuts, almost all of you smiled in response to Jeremy's smile at the delight of having a proper American donut. It was almost impossible to resist the temptation to smile. I tried and I failed. If you go back and watch, you'll see that, no, I did not do a very good job. And why is that? It's because people like people who are like them. And I like donuts. And I like Jeremy. And together, those two things are a difficult combination to fight against. When we talk to people, you can't really see this, but that's fine. It's mostly for my guide. Because just like the logical levels, we'll be doing a lot of this tonight. When we talk to people, we have the opportunity to look at them and watch how they're talking to us. We can look at them and we can look at their eyes and what their eyes are doing, where their eyes are looking, whether they're making eye contact with you, for how long they're making eye contact with you. When they're not making eye contact with you, where are their eyes looking? Are they darting to the sides? Are they darting down to the floor? Are they indicating something with their eye contact? How quickly are they blinking? Are they changing their blinking frequency? All of these things, just with their eyes, can mean something. In addition to that, there are the auditory things that you can listen for when people are talking. I'm not talking about content, I'm talking about delivery. Their voice patterns, their volume, their speed, their pitch, any repetition, any inflections, interrogative inflections included. Additionally, we have the kinesthetic elements of their delivery. That is, what are they doing with their body? Are they facing you when they're talking to you? Are they slouched? Are they presenting themselves big and strong? Have they turned on their side? Do they look like they're getting ready to run away? Have they got themselves constricted? Are they trying to protect themselves? All of these things fall into the broad category of kinesthetics. And then we have the fourth and the most powerful indicator, their breathing. Breathing is something which we all can subconsciously detect, but consciously we struggle with. To identify if someone is shifting from fast breathing to slow breathing, that's something that we can all be consciously aware of. And if we know to look for it, then we can look for it. If we don't know to look, then we won't look, then we won't be able to label, then we won't be able to react. So knowing these four things, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and breathing, those things, four, that's it, just four. Those four things will change the way that you look and listen to the way that someone speaks. If you are having a conversation with someone via Zoom or in person and you press the mute button, chances are you'll be able to follow along with what's happening in the conversation just by how they're saying it. And I'm sure that all of you can recognize this because all of you have been to a country where you have not spoken the language. And you switched on TV late at night because there's nothing else to do. And you watch the sitcom, you watch the drama. And even though without subtitles and without any understanding of the language in which they are speaking, you can still get the general idea of what's happening. We don't need words to communicate. They're just the icing on the cake. So, the awareness, that's where we were. Okay, the awareness of people and being able to see the world as they see the world, then we're able to better, as a communicator, describe their situation to them in a way that will allow them to better come to a solution if we're in a coaching situation, or alternatively, it will allow us to simply relate to them better and establish a better relationship. Because, as we all know, relationship and relating are, in fact, the same thing.
And the one thing here is, although people like people, a lot of what we're doing here isn't actually necessarily liking. We're getting into rapport. And you can get into rapport with someone even without liking them. It would help because if you like them, the process will happen more unconsciously, easily, and naturally.
The other side to this awareness and the follow-on from identify is that it will allow you to respond. Now, when you can effectively identify what it is that you're seeing and you are aware of what your client respond and awareness are the two side by side there. And I will provide a diagram with all of this at the end. But when you're able to identify what you're seeing and you are aware of how your client or the person you're communicating with sees the world, then you are better able to respond to the person who you are communicating with. If you're talking to someone who has a view of the world and they see the world as attacking them, and you've been able to identify this by how they're talking, by what they're doing when they're talking, by their body posture and position, and you have effectively calibrated yourself and become aware of the way that they see the world, then you're in a position to more effectively respond to the things that they are saying. And your response is not just the words that you say. Your response can be the way that you position yourself, the way that you speak, the volume that you speak, the amount of eye contact that you make with the person. All of these things make up your response. The words are ancillary to all of this. They're unnecessary for that response. And the reason why all of this is important is because that is what allows you to create rapport, which is what Adrian was just speaking about. Becoming in rapport with someone is not about liking someone or developing a trusting relationship in the context of NLP. Rapport is about establishing a subconscious relationship with the person that you're speaking to. When you can create a sense of rapport with the people who you speak to, then they will become more comfortable with speaking with you. And that communication is the most important part of any kind of coach-client relationship, but is also important for any personal relationship, any business relationship, any family relationship that you have with people. If people feel uncomfortable when they speak with you, they will not like to speak with you. Whereas if they feel comfortable when they speak with you, whether they can identify why they feel comfortable or not, if they feel comfortable, they will be more forthcoming with their communications.
Now, one challenging thing, guys, is that we get a lot of stuff to cover, and as NLP practitioners, we end up with a lot of awareness and our minds really open to a lot of new things. But some things don't get solid. So you might have someone like Rusty who's like, I've heard these things, but I'm not quite getting a grip yet. And he wants to get a good grip. But for him to get a good grip, he may actually need to do more things. Because someone who's very kinesthetics, they might say, I'm not quite getting a grip. Can we do some more? But a visual person might say, I can't see this working, or can you show me an example? And some people will have a preference, and you'll hear them. They will keep saying visual, visual, visual words, and some people will keep saying, or the kinesthetic words, the feeling, 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 getting a hold of it words. And you can actually see that some people might be very strong here with some things and down here with others. But generally, the visual people, notice I'm saying visual people, because I've actually been trained that there are people that have a strong preference for this. You ask them for directions and they will show you. Like, just look down there. How do you like to get directions? If someone points and they say, like, down there, you see that building down there, and then you turn that way and you'll see the blue building. Well, I'm actually using hand signals here, so I'm using some kinesthetics. I'm using some kinesthetics and visual. But there are some people who will just say, go down the road for 3 minutes and then turn right and then follow up, and you'll see and they will describe it all, and they will just say it with no hand gestures, just using distance perhaps. So people will have a preference. But look, if you're going to help someone that's lost on the street, you've just met them, how would you help them? Would you V? Would you A? Would you K? Remember how many representational systems? 5 senses. Each one can get broken up. Each one can get broken up into smaller ones, right? Now remember I said there's 5 senses, but in Buddhism there's 6. I'm not sure if it's because, Buddhism spread, and then after it spread, it kind of, split into 3 main groups or more. But I remember learning that in Buddhism, I think it was Shinzen Young said about a 6th sense. And does anyone know what the 6th sense is?
Like intuition, it's like inside feeling, the energy.
Intuition, the inner thinking, the way you kind of inner, is like a 6th sense there. And with NLP, we often see VAK and one more. So there's a couple more points to get at. The visual people the people that have a strong preference here, they will look good. They'll go to a hairdresser and they may have a picture, or they pay a lot of attention, and their breathing is often up higher. And they often talk fast because they think in pictures, and they all have a vision board. And even though you might have a different system, you can still use some of their strategies, but they all have vision boards. And I was working with someone doing mathematics and doing finances, showing them their finances. I was showing them these spreadsheets, which were very AD, they were very logic. It was like Excel spreadsheets, and they weren't getting it. So I used the Excel spreadsheet and I related it all back to pictures. So on their Excel spreadsheet, they started adding color. So if you could imagine, you're helping someone do very basic budgeting, expenses, income. The visual people thought it was boring as hell, so they started using colors and they started to enjoy it more. Colors, and then a week later, they added like a chart. The auditory people, they breathe from a little bit lower, and you'll hear some of these predicates, hear, clear, music, they might be rhythm. There's a fair chance they'll play in a band or a musical instrument. They might sing a lot, right? They don't quite look as good. Now the kinesthetics, they tend to look the worst. Look the worst because they feel the best. These guys will wear what's comfortable. These guys might wear clothes that are just really comfortable for them. They might have a big jumper and they get it because it feels good. They'll breathe from lower down. They seem a little bit slower. They may talk slower. And if you can recognize it, you can also talk slower and ask them, how are you feeling today? Yeah? You guys clear with all that? Or have you got a good grip on it? Or are you guys just seeing clearly? So these things, the VAK, we call it the REP system, representational system. And when they break out into like bass, volume, treble, these things, we call them submodalities. Submodalities, or you can call them sub-representation systems, subsystems, because these are subsystems of the bigger thing. So like bass is a subsystem of auditory. Volume is a subsystem of auditory. Tone is a subsystem of auditory. Later on, we're going to play a lot more with submodalities.